Great. Good morning, guys, from wherever you are, all over Kenya. Most welcome. There are those of us who are watching us live and also here in Zoom. Most welcome to today's session. And today, I'm excited to say that we are going to start with CSS, or what you call cascading style sheets. And you might be wondering what cascading style sheets is, what cascading style sheet is all about. You might also be wondering what it is. So that's what we're going to unveil today. Great. I'm super excited about that. We are going to try a couple and then I'll give you an assignment as well for you to go and try it. I'm really happy with your submissions, and you guys created really nice sites and connected a link to, Sauti Soul's music. I'm a fan, yeah. That's why you, I don't know if about you guys, but I will give you another assignment basically so that you can understand CSS much better. So I'm going to share my screen. First of all, before I do, let me make sure that I open the folder of where we stopped from. Codas, yeah. Okay, yeah, let me share my screen now. Okay. Just a second. Yes, now I can safely share. Sometimes we have to close a couple of tabs so that we don't confuse. Great. Now, with this, now we were able to create a couple of things in the other session. We learned about lists, we learned about tables, we learned about forms. We learned about iframe embedding YouTube videos. We also learned about how you can add local videos, and you guys tried adding videos as well. So today we are going to dive into CSS. And in the CSS, we just want to make sure that you guys understand how you can style websites. And with styling websites, of course, CSS is actually part and parcel of coding, because you are able to create websites or sites that you have arranged them in a way that you would really want them arranged. So that is really important. It's really important that you learn about CSS. And the good thing, the beauty of CSS is you have the freedom, or you have the chance to create sites that you can be able to position items whenever you want. Because normally when you write your HTML code, basically the HTML code, you're writing your HTML code, and then you are able to just place items horizontally. The moment you write, you put your sorry about that. I think there is some issue with my computer. Yes, the moment you put items at the CSS, at the HTML, they're just arranged horizontally. So there is no need of us doing that, and yet we have a CSS. And the good thing about CSS is you are able to create sites and placing items whenever you want. You're able to create, even to put your custom fonts. You're able to create a to put sites with stylings that are custom to you. Put background images, you can put background videos, you can do anything, not anything, of course. You can do a lot with the CSS. So having said that, let us now begin. So I've shared my screen. This is what we did last time. And I'm just going to start with this. So what you can do is do not open where the assignment was, but rather open where the folder where we stopped from the other time. We stopped by, we stopped from here. We stopped from where we created tables, forms, iframe, and video. We stopped from there. So I'll give you a minute to open that. Well, I'm giving you that minute to do that. First of all, I just want to say thank you guys for accepting to change the time. Of course, yesterday was a national holiday. We respect that at Pony Techno Girls. We respect that. So that's why we didn't want us to meet at that time. And thank you for adjusting. And also, if maybe you'll be following this video later, you can keep on, you can just follow it. And then there is this form that I'm sharing with you guys. Kindly fill for those who've just joined. Make sure that you filled it. I'll just put in the comments again as I'm waiting for you guys to start your Sublime text. As I'm waiting for you guys to start your Sublime text, please fill this form right now, and then we can continue. So I want us to start learning CSS. And basically, CSS in full means cascading style sheets. CSS means cascading style sheets. And we are going to start with the basic. We understand the basic, and then we go to the complex ones. We try to understand the complex CSS. And then finally, we try with we also try with the assignment. Then from there, in the next session, we'll dive into Bootstrap. Bootstrap is a framework. It's a front-end framework that deals with CSS as well, that has created most classes for us. So there's no need of us to recreate the classes, and that's the beauty of it. So fill the form kindly. I've posted in the comment section. I'll post it again if you've just joined us. Make sure that you fill the form, and then we can proceed. Great. Let us continue. Now, with CSS, you are able to style your website. You are able to create or style your website. And how do you go about styling your website? First of all, there are 3 types of CSS. But before I dive into those 3 types of CSS, I just want us to try adding a CSS, first of all. Okay, I want us to try adding a CSS, first of all, so that you can understand what it is. So I've updated my Sublime text to the new version, so it won't have the autocomplete features. So make sure that you type correctly. Make sure that you type your stylings as correctly as possible for us to be able to, for you to be able to not have errors. Okay, so let's go to the body section there. Put a space. We are now adding some CSS, okay? Put a space. I'll explain what this CSS means, and then we're going to look at the types of CSS and see how what their syntax is or what their roles are, and then we're going to just make sure that we have we create some code. So put space there as a body inside the body tag. Put a space and then write style. The style tag. Of course, press enter if you see it, it will autocomplete for you. But if it doesn't, just type it to the full. Then type style, okay? And then you can say background color, like that. Background color, put a full colon, and then in the color, you can write, sorry about that, powder blue, powder blue, color, powder blue. Make sure that you type background hyphen color. Color is in American English, not, I mean, I don't know European. Oh, British, yes. No British English, American English, color, like that. Then full colon, powder blue. Make sure that you type background hyphen color, then full colon, powder blue, end with a semicolon. Save that, and then open in browser. I'm going to open in browser. As you can see, our background color is already powder blue, okay? So the source code is, or the code to write that is background color. You put a style and then equal sign and then the quotation mark. Now, inside the quotation mark, right? Background hyphen color, full colon, powder blue. Let me know if you've managed to do that in the comments. After you've done that, you can just let me know in the comments. But if you're just following it, is still fine. Please try it after. Now, with the CSS or with CSS, this is what we call inline CSS, okay? Inline CSS. Wow, Virginia, Harriet, thank you so much. You guys have tried that out. Well done. And that's awesome. Keep on trying. Keep on trying, guys. Virginia, Harriet, well done. Now, this is what we call inline CSS. And what do we mean by inline CSS? Basically, you're creating style sheets or stylings that are able to, or that you're able to, basically that you're able to put at a particular line of a HTML element. At a particular line of a HTML element. I really don't recommend this. I don't recommend this because with this, you are, I mean, with the time, for example, you are styling all the heading ones. It will be very cumbersome for you. It will be very hard for you if you're styling multiple headings and then you've written, let's say, 1,000 headings, or you're styling paragraphs. You've written 1,000 paragraphs. It's really not efficient for you to style only a particular line or to style line by line. At times, you'll get tired. Of course, you can use it once in a while, but no. So if your background has changed, it means that you have styled this. Another thing that I want us to try is we can put a font here. We can say font family, font hyphen family. Make sure that you type exactly as I am doing, guys. Font family, then you say Verdana, like that. Font hyphen family, and then capital V, Verdana. Verdana is a font family. We're going to learn about Google Fonts in the next session, and then we see how we can embed Google Fonts. But for now, make sure that you have put font family, Verdana, like that. Font family, Verdana. And then save that. And then let's go to our browsers and refresh. This time we don't need as you can see, the font has changed. The font has changed to something else, Verdana. Okay, so let me see. Oh, wow. Grace, you're following, you're done. Justin, Wendy. That's awesome. That's awesome, guys. Actually, CSS, this is a session that I want you to try out and follow through. Yeah. So I'm really happy that you guys are following this through. So Verdana is a font family, and we're going to repeat a couple. So Shally, you're saying I repeat. It's very simple. Just come after you've typed powder blue, press a space bar. Let me delete this code. After you've typed powder blue like that, press a space bar and then type font hyphen family. Font hyphen family. Then type Verdana. Verdana is a font family. Font hyphen family, Verdana, like that. Make sure that all your statements end with a semicolon. All your statements end with a semicolon. Let me know if you got that. I'll save this and then you refresh in your browser. Oh, well done, Angel and Harriet. Shally, let me know if you're there. Fantastic. Now, with font family, of course, we've looked at it and we've seen the font has changed. Let us try one last CSS before I start explaining to you types of CSS, and then we'll dive right into to try out these types of CSS. Great. Now, we're going to look at another type. We're going to style the H1. We can add a style tag, a style attribute like that, a style attribute. And if you guys can remember, in the previous sessions, as we were talking about attributes, I kept on insisting that attributes are a doorway towards CSS. And it was really important for you to remember how attributes are written. So here, that's why we are opening or we are learning about CSS, because with CSS or with inline CSS, you're using what you call style attribute, okay? Style attribute. So make sure that you remember that. Don't put that knowledge in the, I mean, eh, don't put that knowledge somewhere on the side. Make sure that you remember that, because it's really important you remember this type of, attributes, you're going to use it in the inline CSS. Great. Now, here as a style tag, inside the style tag, you can put color, okay? Color like that. And then you can say in the color, you can say red. Let's put red. Or you can put dark red like that, dark red, one word. Make sure that you put color full colon, dark red, then a semicolon, end with a semicolon. Color, then dark red. In the H1, put a style attribute, quotation marks, then color, full colon, dark red. And then save that, and then come to your browser, refresh. You'll be able to see that it is dark red like that. Let us add one last CSS. I know I'm saying the last CSS, but let's add another one last CSS. This is the last one, I promise. So come to the heading 2, put a style attribute like that, and then in the style attribute, put now background color. Background color like that, full colon, tomato. Tomato is a color actually. So it's one of my favorite colors. Background color tomato, and then you can put what you call color, so that it changes the color of the text. Color, full colon, white, semicolon, not wheat, sorry, white. Wheat is also a color, white, then put a semicolon. So background color, full colon, tomato, semicolon, space bar, color, full colon, white. Fantastic. Save that. Let's rush to our browser, refresh that. We're able to see some changes that our CSS is showing us. I'm super excited today because CSS is actually one thing that I really love. I've created a couple of CSSs just on the side because it is what I love to do. And of course, there are tricks, especially right now, there are trends in CSS that you can really try online. They're cool trends, like you can really put awesome animations, you can put jumping text. It's super cool. So I really want to encourage you to enjoy this. Enjoy this as much as possible, as much as I am, at least then, as much as I am. So great. So let me know if you've done that so that we can proceed to discussing about types of CSS. Let me know if you are done with that so that we can discuss the types of CSS and how do we go about these 3 types of CSS and how are we going to create them today in preparation for your assignments. Wow. Okay, so at 10:22, Harriet, Valerie, Grace, Virginia. Wow, Eunice, well done. Well done, guys. This is remarkable. Oh, Angel, I'm glad you're enjoying this as well. Thank you. Thank you. I'm really happy. Fantastic. Oh, great. Great, great, guys. Now, I'm going to share now. Oh, Beatrice, well done. Well done, Beatrice. You are done as well. So I'm going to share another, I'm going to stop share so that I share a whiteboard, or basically what we call a whiteboard. Yes, so that we can discuss the types of CSS. Great. And then I'm going to put a text. Wow, Faith, you're saying, well, you're done, well done. So Fatima, you're saying kindly post the form again. I'm going to post it again. If someone has access to the font, to the form, kindly post it for her, okay? So that, oh, thank you, Aisha. Thank you, Aisha Musa, for posting the form. And Justin, I agree with you. CSS is magical, it's beautiful. You can really create fantastic sites. And this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning, guys. We're going to learn even more, and we're going to create as much as possible. And even in the next session, as we are proceeding, we are going to host something on GitHub pages, and so that you can learn about backends as well after front end, and then you can create your projects as we progress. Great. Now, let us dive into the CSSs. Okay. And now let me put the text here in the whiteboard so that we can just discuss the types of CSS. So let me put the title, types of CSS. Let me say CSS because it is not in plural. CSS, types of CSS. So there are three types of CSS. Ziko aina tatu. There are three types of CSS. The first one is just what we've done right now. It's called inline CSS. Inline CSS. So what is the syntax? Let me come back to the whiteboard. Inline CSS. So the first one, inline CSS. So with inline CSS, you are able to style every HTML element. You're able to style every HTML element. For example, if you want to style body, you're going to style body and the entire content that is within the body tag. If you're going to style only H1, you're only going to style that particular line of CSS. So let me give you the what we call the syntax. The syntax is, of course, you have opened or you're writing the element name like that. Element hyphen name like this, and then you've typed everything here. Let me put 3 dots like that, and then you've closed the element, that tag. Of course, you've closed the tag like this. And then this is the syntax. You come here and put the style attribute. You guys have already seen that. And I'm really happy that you've already seen that. You put the style attribute and 2 quotation mark, okay? You put the style attribute and 2 quotation mark. Now, what are you saying when you do that? You are now entering the CSS zone. You are now entering the CSS zone when you do that, okay? So that is what we call inline CSS. So when you enter the CSS zone, now this is where the magic happens here. Another syntax that I'm going to mention is you're going to put here property, full colon, value, semicolon, and then let's say you're adding multiple properties, which is allowed. Let's say property 2, full colon, value 2, semicolon. I hope that is not hard. You just come within the element opening tag, okay? Within the elements opening tag, you put a style attribute. You put the style attribute. Now, with the style attribute, you start by putting now the styles. Property, full colon, then value, semicolon. Property, full colon, value, semicolon. You can put as many properties and as many properties and values as possible. You are free to do that. Okay? Fantastic. That is what we call inline CSS. So Angel, you're asking how we are going to create the board. No, 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 no. This is like a virtual blackboard. Only, only the tutor has it, okay? So don't create a board. This is like a virtual blackboard. So just listen in, okay? Great. Now, that is what we call inline CSS. Inline CSS. Now, there is another type of CSS that you're going to have a look at right now. It is called internal CSS, okay? Internal CSS. This is inline CSS. Let me put some spaces so that you can be able to understand this higher. Internal CSS. Higher. How do we create internal CSSs? Let me check my battery percentage. Great. Internal CSS, the syntax is you have to have a style tag within the head of your HTML element, okay? You have to have a style tag within the head of HTML element. So you have to that and you close the style tag like that, okay? Great. That is how you put what we call inline CSS. When you open the style tag inside the head element, you are saying that you are now opening the CSS, or you are now creating a CSS inside that document. You're now creating a CSS inside that document. So, which is what we call internal CSS. Great. So how do we go about internal CSS? There are 3 types. And this is now the doorway of us talking about complex CSS stuff, okay? This is now the doorway of us talking about complex CSS stuff. There are three main types of selectors. Of course, selectors grow and get complex as we go by, okay? Selectors grow and complex as we get by, but let us just discuss it. Keep an open mind here. So internal CSS, we have the element selector itself, and then we have class selector, and then we have ID selector. And then they get complex as you go by. For example, you can combine class and ID at the same time, or put one in the as a child of the other. We're going to learn that in the next session, of which I'm super excited to prepare that as well for you. So inside the style selector, for example, I want to style my H1, okay? I will use the H1 HTML. I want, let's say, all my websites, all my site, wherever there is a H1, the color is red. I'll put the selector first. Let me write the syntax, selector, like that. And then I open the curly brackets. Then you come inside the curly brackets, you put now property value, okay? Property, full colon, value, semicolon, like that. Hiyo ni property ya kwanza. Then I'll put the second one, property 2, full colon, value, semicolon. Let me discuss why we have this external CSS. With external CSS, it gets more beautiful. It even gets more easy because at times, for example, you don't want to you don't want to use an element selector. You don't want all your heading ones to be red. You just want that particular section of heading 1 to be red. You can create a class selector or an ID selector, and then you go to that HTML element. Instead of putting the style tag, you put let's say H1 class as an attribute, okay? Or you go to H1 or you put ID as an attribute, depending on what you have created, okay? So Wendy, you're asking, what is the meaning of property and what does it entail? Thank you, thank you. Let me show you what property is. Let me show you what property is. I'll stop the board. I'll stop sharing the board, and then I'm going to share the Sublime Text and the browser and understand what we mean. So property, for example, property is background color. Value is powder blue, okay? The second property is font family. The value is Verdana. So that is property, value, property, value. So in line CSS, as we've discussed from the board, you're putting a style attribute. You're putting a style attribute inside the element, okay? You're putting a style attribute inside the element, equal marks, then full quotation. You've opened the CSS door, and then you put the property, value, property, value. For example, these are the properties, the CSS properties, okay? Yeah, this is worth mentioning. This is worth mentioning. So today we are only going to discuss the two types of CSSs. In the next section, I'll make sure that we have discussed external CSS and even do much more with external CSS. So I hope Wendy, you've understood what I mean by property and value. Let me know in the comments if you've understood. And if someone has access to the form, kindly share the form again with your colleagues so that they can fill. I would really want the 35 of you all to fill that form so that you can facilitate your airtime as we go along. Post it again in the comment section for your colleagues to fill. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you for posting the form again. So Wendy, I'm happy that you've gotten that. I'm happy that you've understood that. Now, let us dive into internal CSS, okay? So let's come back to our source code. We have our head here. Oh, Justin, Baraka, I'm happy that you've understood. That is actually our aim. I'm really happy that you have understood. Oh, Belinda, CSS is so awesome. I agree. I agree. Great. Now, let us try what we call internal CSS. And actually, internal CSS is not complex. Let me insist, internal CSS is not complex. Let us keep an open mind always when you are learning about code. It is fun. And when it gets hard, when the going gets hard, we have the group for us to brainstorm, okay? So let's keep an open mind about that. Great. Now, after in the title head, of course, we said head where my first website is in the head section, okay? Where we've written my first website. This is where you actually are able to see in the tab of the website or in the tab there at the top. Let me just wait for this Zoom pop-up to disappear. Yeah, here it is, my first website. That is one property, or that is one element that you put in the head. But there are other elements that you can put in the head, like meta tags and links to fonts and CSS. So now this is where we are going to experience CSS, internal CSS. So let us go back and start typing, okay? Put the style tag. When you see style, of course, click on it, and then it will be able to put type text.css. It is not a must that you have this type text.css, but kindly put it. It will just leave it as it is, okay? Style, type, text.css. It will autocomplete for you. But if maybe you're just typing, just open the style tag and close the style tag, and let's press enter so that we enter into this internal CSS playground, okay? So that we enter into the internal CSS playground. Fantastic. So after you've put that higher, let us start transferring our inline CSS to back into the internal CSS, okay? Let us start transferring. So this is what you're going to do. I want you to remember what you've done. We've said H1, the color is dark red. This one is tomato. So tufute, remove this styling. It won't crash. Remove the style back at the end of quotation mark like that. Remove it so that we start afresh. Not afresh really, because we know these things. Remove the style that you've placed in the body, in the H1 and in the H2. And in the removing, be careful, because I don't want you to miss deleting anything. Delete the style plus everything that is in the quotation mark, but leave the arrows. Leave the arrows so that you just have the tag as clean as it is. And as you can see, I have not deleted a quotation mark here. I will have an error. I have to delete that so that everything is clean as we started. Okay, great. So let's start by saving that first, and then let's go to our browser and refresh so that everything goes back to the good old fashioned HTML that is just boring and staring at us. Fantastic. Now, in the style.css here, let us now put the internal CSS. We said we are putting a selector, okay? The first selector is the HTML selector. You put what we call body, like that, okay? Body as a selector. Press a space bar and put the two curly brackets. Press a space bar and then put the two curly brackets and then press enter. I'll repeat. I'll put the body as a selector like that, body. It's quite hot. Sorry, the place where I am, we have no electricity, so it's quite hot. Anyway, put the body selector, press a space bar, and then put curly brackets. Look for specifically curly brackets. If you put angle brackets or anything else, it won't work. You have to put curly brackets and then press enter. Let us put the properties and value. Property and value. We said font family, or we said background color first of all. Background color like that, full colon, then powder blue, powder blue. End with the semicolon. Always end the statements with a semicolon. With CSS, it's actually very sensitive. It won't work. And then, and then after that, we can say, we said background color, powder blue, and then we're going to add font family, font hyphen family, Verdana, capital V kindly, Verdana. And then we are done with the body selector. If you're done with a selector, you've put all the properties and values that you are finished with, come outside those quotation marks, okay? Come outside these curly brackets. Come outside, press enter, put the second selector. We're going to put H1 as the second selector, and then put curly brackets again. Let us put the property. We've said color was deep red. I don't know, was it which red? Dark red, okay? Yeah, you can try even Indian red if you want to. Yeah, but you can put dark red. It's still fine. Let me just put dark red so that I don't confuse you guys. Dark red, like that, okay? I want you to identify and appreciate the beauty of both internal and external CSS, okay? Higher. Then, other than that color, we are going to add another selector, okay? So actually you're asking, will the property always be a double name? No, actually the property won't always be a double name. There are some which are single name. There are some which are double. There are some which are even triple. So it depends with what you're doing. And I'm going to even share with you a documentation on how you can know this and how you can style a website. For example, if you want let's say you want your text to be jumping, which properties and values will you be using? Things like that. Oh, great. Ah, thank God, electricity is back. Great. Now, are you still able to hear me, guys? Let me know in the. Thank you for your patience, guys. For a moment, I disappeared because of electricity. It came back and then disconnected the Wi-Fi and so on. But anyway, I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to be back. Great. Fantastic. Let's continue enjoying CSS. Let's continue. Now, oh, thank you. Thank you, Harriet. Fantastic. Great. So let me share my screen again. I think I've lost, no, I've not lost my chain of thoughts. Great. So we were adding H1, okay? That's where I froze, I think. We were adding H1, and then in the H1, we were making sure that you add color, dark red, okay, as a property, and then the value of that color is dark red. Okay, and then other than color, we are going to also add, we are going outside. I think color was the only property that we added. Now, let us head on to add another property. We are going to add a H2, a selector, H2, like that, and then open a tag like that, okay? And then H2 here, we are going to put the property. We're going to put a property called a background color like that. And then we can say tomato or tomato, depends with where your English teacher was born from. And then a teacher of English, I think. And then we can say color so that the text color can change to white, like that. Save that, okay? I hope you guys were able to restore this. So let us refresh and see whether everything is going to come back. When I refresh, you can be able to see everything goes back to where it came from. That is inline CSS and then internal CSS. We've just transferred our inline CSS to internal CSS. Fantastic. Now, with internal CSS, there is one thing I also mentioned. Let me go back to the source code. There is one thing, please keep the questions coming. Keep the questions coming. I really would love to attend to them. There is one thing I talked to you guys about selectors. I said there is the element selector of which we have done like this because the moment you write any HTML element, it is a selector on its own. But at times, for example, if I come here and add another H2 here, for example, you can do that with me, H2, like that. And then inside this H2, I say another heading 2, another heading 2, like this, another heading 2. When I come back, of course, I've said all my heading 2s should be of background color, tomato, and of color, white. But I might not want that. I might just want only the first part for it, only the first part to have that. I might not want that. So if I just maintain that as a selector, you'll be able to see that any heading that I add is just like that, of which is awesome because sometimes you might want to have uniformity, that like all my headings should work like this, but sometimes you don't. There are times you really don't. You just want every heading to have its custom stylings and so on. So let me introduce another concept, and we call this classes and ID selector. Now, in CSS, class selector and ID selector, you're able to create anything. I mean, a class of whichever name you want to call it. You can even call it in your mother tongue. But as long as you know what its function is, as long as you know what its function is. So, for example, I might want to change the background color of, let's say, only this heading 2. I want, let's say, to change the background color of this. Let me start with this heading 6. For example, I have multiple heading 6. I want to change this heading 6 to be of color, let's say, red. Okay, red color. But I only want only this H6. So I can use what we call an ID selector. How do you create an ID selector? You use a hashtag. You put a hashtag and then put the ID name. The ID name should be any name. And the syntax of writing this ID name, do not start with a letter. You can use two words, but you hyphenate them, or you can put an underscore. Okay, but they have to be one word. For example, I can use one word here and say red color, like that. Or maybe if I want to hyphenate this, I can hyphenate it like this. Or I can say heading 6 color, heading 6 red color, like that. So feel free to use any name, but for now, let's just be uniform, red color, like that. So this is an ID selector. An ID selector, you use hash. Hash, you use an ID selector. Now, after you've done that, you're going to put opening curly brackets. Venye tu tumefanya in the previous selectors. And then we can say color red, like that. Color red. And then come outside the color, press enter. And then let's put a background color. We can put even a background color of, we're just learning these simple ones. Background color, we can say light gray, light gray. You can choose any, either the gray with the A or the gray with the E. Light gray, like that. Light gray. And save that. So if I go to my website, I hope you've done that, guys. I hope you've done that, ladies and gentlemen. If I go back to my website, I refresh this, you'll be able to see nothing. You'll be able to see nothing. And this is where most of us developers always make mistakes. Even our deputy director here, Miss Aisha, professional web developer, can attest to you. This is where us developers make mistakes. So how do we correct that? The moment you use an ID selector or a class selector, you have to make sure that you have called it in the HTML element. So how do we call it? How do we call it? Copy it, okay? Or if you can remember how it is called, just you can just go to the HTML element itself. We say we wanted to style H6. You can press a space bar, and then we can say ID, like that. ID is an attribute, so that you can add the CSS styling. So when I say ID, press enter, or you can write ID equals 2 quotation marks, and then you can paste the ID, red color, without the hashtag, okay? Without the hashtag. The moment you put a hashtag there, CSS will be able to know, this is ID. So you put an ID and then put exactly like this, without the hashtag, okay? So when you call it like that here, when you call it like that and save it, you'll come to your body here, refresh, and you'll be able to see heading 6 has changed to color red, and the background color is some slight version of gray there. Let me know if you've understood ID selectors. Okay, you're asking that I kindly repeat. Salha and YV. Valerie, I'm happy you've understood. Let me repeat. Let me repeat. Let me repeat, guys. So just a second. Yeah. Yeah. Let me repeat. Now, it's super easy. It's super easy. Uh, with ID selectors, you can create any ID of your choice. Okay, you can create any ID of your choice. So, for example, here, if you want to style a particular section of any HTML element, it might be heading 6, it might be the entire div or the entire section. If you want to style it, you create an ID, and creating an ID selector in CSS, you use what we call a hashtag before the ID name. And remember, this ID name, you can call it anything, okay? You can call it anything. Let me delete this so that we can have something uniform. Let me delete this. Yes. So here, this is what I did. I just created hash like this, and then said red hyphen color. This is this is not a special type of selector. I mean the special type of naming, because it is my own custom name. Okay. So after I've created that ID selector, I'll put curly brackets. And then when I put curly brackets, I can now put the colors. So this is red hyphen color. So I can say color property value. You now put the normal property and value. Color red, and then I can say background color. Background color. What was it? Light gray. Let us choose any light gray of your choice, and then I'll press enter. So guys, for those who've understood, let us add this, okay? Padding. Let us add padding, and then I'll explain to you what padding is. So let us add padding. Padding, you can say 20 pixels, like that. Padding, 20 pixels. So if you've just joined us, please make sure that you stay with us. We have a form that we are sharing so that you can be able to you can be able to fill for us to facilitate your bundles. Oh, fantastic. So great. So if I save this, I know some of you have already placed this there, but if I save this and then go to my browser and refresh, you'll be able to see nothing has happened to that heading. It is because I've not called that selector. The moment you put an ID selector and the moment you put a class selector, you have to make sure that you have called it in the CSS. You have to really make sure that you've called it. So this is what you do. Make sure that you copy it without the hashtag, or if you can remember, if you have a good memory, you can remember it, there's no need. Then come to the heading where you want it to be affected, press a space bar, add an ID property, an ID attribute, I mean, not property, an ID attribute, then inside the ID attribute, paste there, red color without the hashtag. Save that. When you go to the browser, you'll be able to refresh and see some changes in that heading, okay? Oh, Vasha, I'm happy you've understood. Iro, I'm happy you've understood again. So Valerie, you're asking whether you can have more than one ID. Wow, now this is what we were talking about. Yes, you really can, but it's not recommended. You can have more than one class. It is possible for you to have more than one class, but IDs are really special because sometimes you might create a one-paged website, and the only way to reference that page, to add a menu so that you can move to that section of that page, you use IDs. So somehow they will get conflicted. But I highly recommend that you can use as many classes as possible. After we are going to discuss that in the coming sessions, in a way that a particular HTML element, or especially dividers and sections, can have as many classes as possible. But ID, just one. It is very recommended that you put one. Of course, you can have multiple, and all the properties and values will be affected, but the moment you start linking them using a JavaScript, which is something that you're going to learn as well, they will get confused. Okay, that is a really great question. Great. Great. The form has been shared to us. Thank you, Salha. Also, our deputy director has shared with us the form. Please fill the form so that after this, we will discuss with her, with Miss Aisha, on how we can facilitate this. Great. We have 5 minutes remaining. And in the 5 minutes that is remaining, we are going to discuss what we call class. Okay? A class now. A class. And what is CSS class? It's very similar to ID. The only difference is you use a dot. And then you're going to discuss where now do you use IDs? Where now do you use classes? And I'm happy Valerie already has, was it you, Valerie? Yes, Valerie Akinyi. I'm happy you're the one who just asked that. Okay. I'm really happy that you've asked that so that at least I don't forget that to discuss when do we use IDs? When do we use classes? Yeah, great. Now, this is what we use in terms of, let's say, class selectors. And in the class selectors, don't worry, Justin, I'll make sure you have an assignment. Don't worry. In fact, this time you're going to research a little bit on the CSS and then do the assignment. Because we can't learn all the CSS properties and values, but I'll give you a documentation, where to get them from, and then you create it. We are still going to do a Sauti Sol thing, but something a bit different. And then in the next assignment, we'll forget about albums and then do something else. Now let us put a class selector. How do we create class selectors? Very simple. Press enter here, and then you put a dot. The moment you put a dot inside the CSS, the moment you put a dot, that is a class selector. And of course, you can give it any name. For example, you can say a class my size, because let's say, or we can say class my text, class my text. Let me this time use one word. There's no need of my text like that. Class my text, and then open curly brackets like that. And then in the curly brackets, let's say we want to change the paragraph font size to be a bit bigger, like let's say 24 pixels. Yeah, 24 can do. Yeah. Yeah. So we say font hyphen size. Okay. Font size 24 px. Okay. Font size 24 pixels. And then after the font size, you can add what we call border. Border. Okay. Now here, I'll just introduce a little bit of complexity, but it's not really complex. Okay. A little bit of complexity, but just keep it an open mind. There are some selectors in which they're called shortened. You can either select all of them or you shorten them. So just don't think about it right now. I'll make sure that we've discussed this in the coming session. So border, you can say 1px space. Now this is a different way of writing CSS. Just do as I'm saying, I'll explain it, okay? So border 1 pixel space solid space, then write tomato. I'll discuss about color. So if you guys, I don't know, I should assign one person to remind me in the next session so that I discuss colors and fonts specifically, so that I discuss colors and fonts, so that you can understand what colors and fonts that are out there. So in the new session that is going to come, make sure that one of you or all of you just remind us that we discuss about colors, because there are different ways in which you can call colors. There is what we call RGBA, and then I know some of you have done physics, you know what RGB is. And then we have what we call hex colors. These one are just named colors, but you will be limited. In case you are really specific, you might be limited. So remind me in the next session so that we discuss about fonts and colors. Great. So just type like this: 1 pixels, solid, tomato. There are spaces: 1 pixel, space, solid, space, tomato, space. make sure that you end with a semicolon at the end. Then let us add padding, put 20 pixels like that. And then save like that, save that. So let me check. I think there is a question. Oh, Angel, you've not missed actually, but if you have, don't worry, you'll just follow. But we have, let me know if you've done this. Class, it's .my text, and then open the curly brackets, font size. The value is 24 pixels, border 1 pixel solid tomato, padding 20 pixels. Then after you're done with that, save it. Of course, when we refresh in our browser, nothing is happening. Can anyone volunteer to tell me why? You can even unmute yourself. I really would love to see you and hear your voice. So you're asking what padding is, I will explain. So why is it not affecting anywhere? Anyone?
Hello.
Hello, is it
Can I
Valerie? Or
try?
yes,
It's Harriet.
Valerie. Oh, it's Harriet.
Yeah.
It's okay, Valerie, go ahead.
Oh, Sawa. Harriet will also answer. Sawa. Okay, Valerie.
Okay.
Yes?
Okay. I think the reason as to why it's not showing
Mm-hmm.
is because we've not we have not placed as to where it should take effect. Like in the case of where we did with the case we did with the H6. So I think that is why.
Wow. Harriet, anything you would want to say as well?
Yes, I add on to Valerie.
Yes, kindly.
I think it's because we haven't called it in the element section.
Wow, you guys are correct. And I can even see Justine, because you've defined the class, you've defined the, yes, correct. Vasha, you haven't called the CSS yet in the HTML. And I wish I would hug you all. Correct. We haven't called it in the HTML element. We haven't added a class attribute in the HTML element for it to effect. Correct, guys. This is fantastic. Now let us go put in the second paragraph, okay, in the first paragraph actually, and then I'll explain what padding is before I leave you guys to go. Great. So let's go to this, just let's put in the first paragraph, and then we call it class. Put a class attribute now, because a class starts with a dot like that, and then put the class there, my text, and then save it, my text, and then let's refresh, you see the magics. Yes. Let me know if you have something similar to mine. Let me know if you do have something similar to mine. You add now a class attribute. The moment you put a dot and put a custom name, that is a class in CSS. And when you call that in the HTML element, you use a class attribute. The moment you use a hashtag, you call an ID, okay? The moment you use a hashtag, when you go to the HTML element, you give an ID attribute to that element. And that's why I was insisting, guys. And I can see you really understood, or really took to heart what I said in the other time. So Beatrice, you're asking, I repeat? Awesome, let me repeat. After you've created the CSS here, my text, you've given a font size, full colon 24 pixels, border 1 pixels, solid tomato, padding 20 pixels. Come here to the paragraph, add a class attribute. This is how you add a class attribute, if you can remember. If you can remember, class like that, class equals 2 quotation marks, and then you can put the my text without the dot now, okay? Without the dot, my text without the dot, my text, and save that. And then when you come to your browser and refresh, you'll be able to see it effected. Now, let me know if you've gotten that. I want to explain padding very quickly, I want to explain padding and margin very quickly. And then I'll give you a documentation on where to look at. And then I will give you an assignment. I'm super excited for you guys to try this CSS. This assignment will actually open doors or open ways in which you can just understand what CSS is all about and just have a beauty. Appreciate the beauty of having the freedom to create as many styles as you want and as many classes and IDs as you want. I'm really happy that Toshiba, I think there is a, I mean, I don't know who you are, but your name is Toshiba, but Beatrice Angel. So you're saying you're floating the last part. Where exactly of adding the class attribute Angel? You can feel free to unmute, by the way, and explain it to me. Please, please, I don't want to leave you behind. It would really be great if I understand how I can help you, because even on assignments, you'll be alone. Yes, Angel?
Hi, I'm floating
Hi.
on the class text.
On how you can add the class
Yes.
as an attribute to the HTML element.
Yeah, the one you've written my text, the last part.
Hapa.
Yes.
Oh, sawa, haina shida. Sasa Angel, unaona hapa juu, we've created a class and we've said a class selector starts with a dot, okay? And then you give it any name. I've written it my text, but it can be even any name, kama text yangu, whichever name that you would want to call that will make you remember. And then we've given these attributes, I mean, properties, values, okay?
Yeah.
So for it to effect, it is very similar to the way we were doing with ID. You go and add an ID property, a class property, okay? A class attribute in the HTML element. So we have called this my text as a class here in the CSS. Now we are going now to where we want this text to effect. We said we want this to effect in the paragraph. So if we want this to effect in the paragraph, we are going to add it in the paragraph as a class attribute. So let us add it. You come here in the paragraph, press space, then add a class attribute, and then we can just type there my text like that. So all the properties and values that are in my text that you've created here in the CSS will be effected in this paragraph. Let me know if you've understood.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, anytime. So it's as simple as that. It's very similar to what we're doing here in ID. The only difference is inaitwa class. And we start with a dot for a class, and you're going to see a lot of dots. IDs are really something that you use rarely. So yeah, you're going to interact with that a lot. Great. Now, you've asked a really important question. What is padding? What is this? What is border? Higher. Padding. Let us start with padding. Kwanza, this is a shortened padding. This is a shortened border. And these are things I'd prefer to discuss in detail next time, okay? So with the padding, you're creating space, every element, as you can see, especially when we put here H1, when we put a background color in H2, you can be able to see that in this H2, we can be able to see that every element is in some sort of a box, okay? Every element is constrained in some sort of a box, okay? So the moment you add padding, you're adding spaces in between the box so that the element can have increased breathing space. I like calling it breathing space, or more room within the element, okay? So the moment I put padding, for example, let's try with this H2. I'll remove that. Don't even do it, okay? Don't do it. Just watch. We'll learn more and more in the next session. So the moment I come to this H2 and then say padding, and then let me put 50 pixels so that tuelewe vizuri, it's a very exaggerated value. So when I put 50 pixels and refresh, you can be able to see that it has increased the breathing spaces. That is, it has made sure that the top, bottom, left, and right has an internal space of 50 pixels, okay? That is what we refer to as padding. But there sometimes maybe you just want only at the top. to be the one which has space. So you put padding hyphen top. We'll discuss that in the next session. Great. There is also what we call margin. If I put here margin, please don't do this. We'll discuss this in the next session. Margin, let me put even 30 pixels, 30 pixels. If I put margin in this H2, I come refresh in my browser, it will push the outside elements, outside the box of that element by 30, top, bottom, left, and right. That is what we refer to as margin. Okay, that is what we refer to as margin. So the difference between padding and margin. Padding is within the element itself because every element is in some sort of box. You're adding a space inside that box or you're giving it more room. Consider it like you're increasing your office or your bedroom space, okay? And then padding, you're increasing your shamba. You're even buying the neighbor's shamba so that you can have some space outside like that, okay? So that is the difference between margin and padding. Let me know if you guys have understood that. Now, Aisha, you're asking, how does one know how many pixels are enough or too much? It's actually your discretion. CSS and styling is your discretion. So it's just a matter of you looking at inspirations as well, and then see like how much is too much for you. It's basically the same as makeup. There are some who are comfortable with adding too much eyelashes and they still look nice. And there are those who just are comfortable with very minimal. So it depends with you. It depends with you. Okay. So you can now see the difference between margin and padding. Thank you, Aisha, for that question. And then Harriet, we have, you're actually the namesake of our deputy director. I'm really excited. Then Harriet, you were saying you now see the difference between margin and padding. That is awesome. That is awesome, Harriet. Any question before we close the session? Any question?
John, I have a
Yes.
question.
Yes, please.
There's something that I'm not getting it clear.
Uh-huh.
Like when you are dealing with selector,
Mm-hmm.
you're just typing it direct, but there's some confusion when it
Mm.
comes to class selector and
Yeah.
ID selector. Is it a must to type it somewhere, then you copy it to the element HTML, or you can just do it direct, like the way we used to do it in element select?
That's a great question. That's a great question. Now, Beatrice, this is
Yes.
really important. Wakati you're creating a HTML, an element selector, the CSS will know that this is an element in HTML. Okay, so you don't need to call that selector again. Sawa. You don't need to call that selector. The moment you just write H1, CSS will know this is heading 1. And it will just know that, this is the selector that I am working on, okay? And then if you're creating a custom selector, that is ID and classes, you have to make sure that you call it in the HTML selector, okay? You have to make sure that you call it. That is some differentiation when you're working with the HTML selector itself, or you're working with the classes and IDs. When you just put a HTML selector, you put the element selector, you don't need to call it. It will affect all the elements, okay? But the moment all the elements, for example, if it's H2, all the H2s that you put there will be affected. But if you put a class selector, you have to make sure that you put a class attribute in the element that you want it affected, or ID, same with ID, you have to put an ID attribute. Let me know if that is clear with you. Yes, Beatrice, let me know. Oh, Justin is saying it's clear. Beatrice, thank you, Justin, for that feedback. Anyone else? Beatrice, let me know if you've understood that. Okay, okay. Great. Any other question? I really loved your questions. They're actually very informative as well. Oh, so why are you asking what meta character set and what does it do? Let me just show it. I've not crammed what it does, but let me just try showing you. Yeah. So what is the meaning? So let me just Google for you. You're telling the browser to use UTF-8 character coding, which is a method of converting your typed characters into machine readable code. Okay, so make sure that you always put that in your HTML code so that the moment a machine compiles it, it is able to know that you're converting this into machine readable code. Okay, make sure that you always try to put that. Of course, right now we're just coding with HTML like that, and we've not put the meta character set like that, but you can make sure that you add that. It's just written like this: meta character set equals to UTF-8. Okay, there's no need of you putting it right now here, but that's a great question, YV. That's a great question. I hope I'm calling you correctly. I hope I've pronounced your name correctly. Oh, awesome. Thank you. Any other question? I've really loved your questions today. I don't know. I've just they were just eye-opening. So I'd still insist that you guys, you kindly remind me in the next session. I discuss more on colors and fonts, but I'm going to prepare an assignment. I actually thought we would do much today, but when electricity got lost, I really got scared that we might not be able to complete, but I'm happy we have completed a couple of stuff, but I will share with you an assignment and more reading materials. And please, please, there is this form. Kindly fill it, okay? Fill that form. We'll be able to assist we'll discuss with the deputy director and assist with looking for airtime. Now, you might be wondering what next after coding sessions, okay? Yeah, let me take just 3 minutes to explain that and then I close the meeting. And then we can brainstorm more in the group as we go along, okay? So fill that form and then let me explain what we call what next. So we are going to learn this HTML, CSS, and a bit of backend of our choice. And then with that backend, we are going to make sure that you are able to create projects. We are going to have an ideation phase in which you're going to create projects in the areas of health, economy, democracy, and security, because these are areas that were really highly hit during the pandemic. So it would be really awesome if you think about solutions along those areas. There are those who joined before you and have created, some have even finished, but that is not to worry you. We have our own pace. We are having our own journey. So you can create a project in those areas. We will guide you when we reach there. And then as we submit our projects for judging, we will now head over to our certification. And that certification is by the 21st C-Skills platform, which is by Liquid Telecom, which is one of the leading, service providers, internet service providers in Africa. So we will make sure that we provide with you that information as we go along. And in this 21st skills, we are going to get certifications in data science, artificial intelligence, and software development using Python language. So the airtime that we're going to send you is actually going to, we were only meeting once, but it's just a small motivation for you to hold on towards up to the end of the 21st skills platform. So use it wisely and use it sparingly. And please cooperate with us to create this, because we believe that you guys together we can join forces to make change in the society in Kenya. Okay. And in the previous, we've seen people in our programs creating solutions, applying for grants, and even implementing their mobile solutions and getting even lucrative opportunities. So I would just want to encourage you to just use this time to make sure that we grasp as much as possible. I want to commend all of you guys for creating time to join this meeting and commend you for being active on your respective WhatsApp groups, debugging the code. I'm really humbled. So let us keep on soldiering. Let us create a community of technology all over Kenya. And I will make a visit to your areas. If you're in a university, I'll try link up with you guys so that you can have a physical meeting in the coming future when we've learned as much as possible. But for now, let us keep on hacking, let's keep on coding, let's keep on soldiering strong. So thank you guys once again. I look forward to meeting you again in the next session and sharing with you the recording of this video, as well as the, what is it called? As well as more info, okay? More info on the group. So thank you so much, guys, and have an awesome afternoon, day ahead of you. Have a productive day.